Welcome back to Relative Security. Today we are going to present another topic, which is SOAR, Security Orchestration and Automation and Response. So we'll start with the definition of what is SOAR, and then we'll just explain some of the keywords, and then we'll take it from there. We're not going to be getting deeper into any of the technical details, but we will definitely go to the details where we can understand what exactly is this solution and how is it important for our company. So we'll start with the this definition that I got from the a resource by Palo Alto Network. This was a special edition. So the definition is: the security orchestration is a method of connecting disparate security technologies through standardized and automatable workflows that enable security teams to effectively carry out incident response and security operations. Now, some of the words in this definition are the keywords that I have marked as keywords. One of them is orchestration, the other is security technologies, and the last one is workflows. The incident response and the security operations are also important, but we will discuss them later on in one of the slides also. So starting from the keywords, orchestration. So the first word is orchestration, which is very interesting because this word has been taken from another industry, and we will take that as an example to understand how does this orchestration fit in the security domain. So let's go to the definition of where exactly this comes from. So the orchestration is basically a study or practice of writing or adapting music for an orchestra. And it is also known as the assignment of different musical instruments to play the different parts of musical work. Now, this is very important because this definition is going to be used to understand the orchestration in the security domain as well. So what's happening in this second definition is that the orchestration is the assignment of different musical instruments. So if you remember that few moments ago, we read about the definition of SOAR as a method of connecting disparate security solutions, security technologies. And here we are talking about assignment of different musical instruments. So why are we going to use it? To play the different parts of a musical work. So musical work. Okay, let's proceed further. So in this picture, if you see that this is the picture of an orchestra where we have different instruments, musical instruments placed differently and at a certain levels. But here is the conductor. So conductor is the one that is going to instruct all these people, whoever is holding, let's say, trumpet, strings, drums, piano. This conductor is the person who is going to assign them that when exactly piano has to play, when exactly are the second violin team that is going to play. So how exactly does the conductor know that when I have to when I have to play the drums, when I have to ask the piano guy to start playing piano, when I have to ask the violin guys? So this booklet, if you see over here, is basically the notebook where he has all the musical notes in the form of a notebook where he keeps on referencing that document and then keeps on telling. So basically this conductor is orchestrating the whole thing. He is using different musical instruments at different levels, but according to the notebook that he has already. So now let's map this definition to different industries using the same terminology, and how does it fit within the security domain. So the first one is that it is an assignment. In musical industry, it is an assignment of different musical instruments. For example, a conductor or the orchestrator decides when exactly I have to play the violin, when exactly I have to play the piano. In our case, it is the conductor or the orchestrator who is defining which security technology I am going to use at a certain point of time. And why do I use the certain technology at a certain point? To complete different actions, to complete a process. Just like a musical conductor is going to play different parts of or the different instruments to complete a musical work, whatever the notebook of that musical conductor says, that this is the musical work that you have to produce. According to that, following that, that orchestrator or a conductor is going to play the instruments. Similarly, in the security domain, the conductor or the orchestrator is going to, as per the process, going to use different security technologies. So now let's talk about briefly about the security technologies that the orchestrator can be using. Now we are going to discuss just a couple of them, just a small list, but this totally depends on the organizational structure and the way they have the way they have designed their architecture, and what are the different technologies that they are using. In our case, for example, um, it could be the ticketing system, it could be the DLP system, SIM solution, EDR, CTI, for example, the threat intelligence platforms, email, web gateways. Totally depends on what are the use cases or why do I need to use the orchestration for these security technologies, or how can I use these security technologies in my orchestration or in my fulfilling of a certain workflow or the process. Oh, so what are these workflows and what are this process that we are talking about? So let's briefly just discuss this workflows and then we will move back towards the utilization of security technologies so that we can understand it. So the workflows can be anything in your operations, in your security operations that you want to be completed, or some task that needs to be completed. It has to follow a certain steps, which could be your workflow. So for example, what happens when an organization receives a phishing email? So as per the company policy or as per the company's their own interest, the way they have defined their own policies or the processes, they will decide that the phishing email might go to the technical team where they have to analyze it, where the header analysis has to be done, or they will send that to the CTI team where they will extract the different artifacts and they will do the contextual analysis on that. And then later on, when they have decided that there are certain IOCs that need to be blocked, they have to go to the infrastructure team. So these all steps, this is just one example that we discussed. So these all steps have to be defined in a in the different workflows. So what to do in the case of inbound malicious traffic? Who's going to analyze that? Who's going to call the shot that, okay, we have some inbound malicious traffic and we need to analyze a certain endpoint? Or do we need to block the traffic at the parameter devices? So these are the different things that one has to decide within the organization. Who should I contact if I happen to know a compromised host? What do I do if I know that if the host is compromised? What is the IR team going to do if when they get to know? So these are the different steps or the different scenarios in which they need to have certain defined workflows. But when we are talking about the SOAR, we have to talk about the orchestration of these workflows. Are these workflows properly defined in such a way that they can be automated, or they are or they are not in such condition that they can be automated? So now we can define that there could be some of the workflows that are automatable, but there would be certainly some workflows that cannot be fully automated. In that case, for example, let's talk about the automatable workflows. Finding the indicator reputations from the CTI tools. So if you have a mature organization where you can see that your SOAR platform can reach out to your threat intelligence platform and maybe submit the IOCs and get back the result. For in the case of IPs or the URLs or some other IOC, they can get back the contextual information, or they can get back if that certain hash is malicious or not. This kind of information, if that can be integrated between your SOAR and the threat intelligence platform, okay, that certainly can be automated. Similarly, if a malicious hash has been detected, if your organization policy says that there needs to be a ticket that has to be generated, this certainly can be automated. Any integration between the SOAR platform and the ticketing platform can easily execute this task if you have an EDR that gives you the functionality of isolating a machine. If you find something suspicious, SOAR can help you over there. If you can do the integration between your EDR and the SOAR, and SOAR happens to know that the certain machine has malicious artifacts on it, or is it is making actively network connections that are malicious, so should be able to do the isolation. That is an automatable workflow. Similarly, if there is a phishing email detected and the SOAR has a capability of sending the emails to the affected users, that they need to be vigilant. For example, if there was some user account that was blocked, or it was found that there was a brute force attempt, email has to be sent to the affected users. SIM raises the alert and the SOAR is integrated with the SIM. SOAR gets to know that there was a brute force attempt for a certain user account. The automatically email gets generated and sent to the user for the confirmation. So these are different workflows that are automatable, and they should be automated. So what are the different manual workflows? Manual workflows are those steps which cannot be automated. Now, what are the different things that come to your mind? For example, if you have an incident, if you are within an incident doing an investigation, and you have to collect further evidence. Now, this is something that is at the discretion of the technical analyst who is doing the investigation. The SOAR cannot decide on its own that what are the different evidence that needs to be collected, how is it going to collect, who's going to collect, where it is going to be stored. So these are the different things where the decision has to be made, and SOAR cannot do it. Similarly, resolving an alert that is dependent on the user approval. For example, if you have an alert that was raised on an endpoint and you need to get a confirmation from the user of that machine that if that process was executed by the user himself or something else happened. So these kind of approvals, where these kind of approvals are required to make a decision about resolving an alert, definitely it cannot be automated. Similarly, if you are doing an investigation and during an investigation you gain some information, based on that you have to pivot, you have to move away from the endpoint, maybe look in the firewall. So these are the things where you cannot automate them. So now let's move back. Now, since we have discussed the security technologies, workflows, and the orchestration, let's go through the definition of the orchestration one more time. So if in this scenario, if we say that the orchestration is the process of managing multiple individual tasks in series or parallel by engaging different set of security technologies to complete a workflow. So, what are the different security technologies that we are engaging? I will just briefly um, go through a complete example where we can discuss this so that we have a better understanding of the orchestration. So, in the orchestration, let's take an example of an endpoint where you have a malicious exe that has been reported into your SIM solution. So if the SOAR is integrated with your multiple solutions, what is going to happen? What are the different steps that you are going to follow? For example, the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to do triage the alert. As soon as you receive an alert of a malicious exe, the SOAR triages the alert, then it finds out the hash from the alert, sends the hash to your threat intelligence platform, checks the hash reputation. If the hash reputation threat intelligence perform platform gives you that the hash you have given has a bad reputation, what happens? Orchestrator decides, okay, if the hash of that particular exe is bad, this needs to be blocked. So it contacts your EDR, gives instructions that this particular hash is reported to be malicious, it is confirmed malicious, and it has to be blocked. That hash gets blocked, and then what does the SOAR do? The next step is the SOAR performs a search on your SIM solution and searches for the similar hash on other endpoints. If it finds those other endpoints, it blocks those hashes, the same hashes on those EDR on those endpoints also. So if you see that what is happening here is your orchestrator is contacting different security solutions, and according to the playbook that you have defined or the process that you have defined for a certain scenario, those steps are being executed one after the other. It is contacting different security solutions based on their input and output. It is defining, it is making decisions, and it is contacting further endpoints, further security solutions. And then it is one by one completing the whole workflow to decide whether this alert is going to be closed as a false positive, or it has to be rerouted to the manual workflow where I need a input from the human. So this is what the orchestrator is doing. So this I hope this orchestration bit within the SOAR definition is clear. Now we will move toward the automation part. So what's the difference between an automation and orchestration? Because they are more or less doing the same thing. But in automation, when we are talking about the automation, it is execution of a single task on its own. So the single task, let's say, we will say that whenever I have an IOC, I need this to be checked within the threat intelligence platform. So if I'm doing this one particular single task repetitively, that is the automation. Now, this one has a limited impact in terms of efficiency, in terms of productivity, because one single task doing separately is not going to make much of a difference. But when we talk about the orchestration, the similar task, the single task is going to be done in a sequence of multiple other single tasks, along with that it's not going to contact one single endpoint or one single security solution. In the orchestration, multiple tasks are being executed, multiple security technologies are being involved while executing that single task, and also in parallel it is made sure that the whole workflow that has been defined before has to be executed. So let's talk about the automation. If we have different single tasks, we have triage, we have enrichment, we have threat intelligence gathering, then we have validation across detection tool. Now these are all different single tasks. But when we talk about orchestration, all of these tasks are going to be done based on the user case or a use case, or based on the scenario that we are going to execute. For example, if it's a phishing email, certain number of different individual tasks are going to be decided by the security team, that what are those tasks which need to be automated and orchestrated to complete a workflow. For example, if there's a phishing email, what are the different tasks that we have to do? First of all, we have to ensure that we have a list of all those people who received that phishing email. we have to send email, or we have to send communication to those users to delete that email from their inbox, or we need to involve the email administrator. Certainly then we have to extract that phishing email, send that to the IR team or any other team that is assigned for the analysis of that team, analysis of that email, and then extract the IOCs, check those IOCs within your search engines, within your SIM solutions. So these are all the different tasks, the individual tasks that are going to be dependent on the scenario which we are going to have in that particular investigation or incident. So how do you automate those all individual tasks using an orchestrator? So one more time, the security orchestration, automation, and response is a method of connecting disparate security technologies through standardized, automatable workflows that enable security teams to effectively carry out incident response and security operations. Now, we have talked about in length about the security orchestration. We have talked about the automatable workflows. We have talked about the automation. But one more thing that we have to discuss is these workflows. Who defines those workflows, from where they come, and what happens? So in our terminologies, we call them playbooks. It is totally dependent on the event type, that what exactly has happened, what is the organizational policy to how to respond to that certain event. For example, if there is a DDoS attack happening, maybe your organizational policy is to just ignore it because you cannot do anything. Maybe another organization says, no, we can't do anything, but at the minimum we can do is we have to block the IP. The other organization may go one step further, and they may have their own defined solutions. They have their own steps that they want to carry out. So all these steps, according to your organization structure, or according to your organization policies, when these step by step plan of actions are defined, those are called the playbooks. For example, if there is a brute force attack, what I'm going to do, what are the different steps, what are the different teams that are going to be involved, what is the outcome of the investigation that we are going to do, how are we going to investigate these things. So these all scenarios, these all processes, step by step actions are to be defined in a certain format in a document, and that is called the playbook. And these playbooks become the basis of your orchestration, because once you have defined these playbooks, that in certain scenario, for example in the brute force attack or the malware reported or detected on an endpoint, how are we going to respond, who are we going to contact, what are the different teams that are going to be involved. Okay, the first step that we have to do in case of, if the malware is going to be detected on an endpoint, are we going to isolate that machine? If we are going to isolate, do we need an approval? If we need an approval, that is going to be a manual workflow. If we do not need an approval and we have to automatically isolate the endpoint, definitely SOAR is going to help you over there. Secondly, once the endpoint has been isolated, do we need to take an image? Can we take an image automatically? Can we initiate an email to the administrator to assign somebody to take the image of that? Or can I collect the artifacts and attach it to the ticket within the SIM solution for the team to take a look at it? So these are different scenarios based on the use case that you are investigating. You define it, that these are the steps that we have to do as per our organizational policy, and that becomes the basis of your orchestration. So who writes the playbooks? It is your security team. It is your, and it's not the only security team that is going to be responsible for it. It is a collective responsibility of the whole team within your organization that are going to define, because everybody needs to know that if there is a certain scenario that is going to happen within the organization, how are we going to respond to it? There could be certain playbooks that are only related to the SOC analyst, where he knows, okay, if this certain incident comes, if I see certain alert on a SIM solution, how am I going to respond to it? How am I going to escalate this? These kind of things are going to be added in the playbooks. So what is the role of the orchestrator? What is the orchestration? So when you have defined the playbook and that you have each and every step laid out, then it is easy because you know, okay, if there is a certain network connection, I have to collect, I have to contact the threat intelligence platform to check the reputation of an IP, or I have to check the reputation of the domain from where these connections are being made. Then I have to check the process that is actually executing and making the network connections. I have to check the hash of that process. I have to check the legitimacy of that process. From where do I check it? From the threat intelligence platform, from maybe your own process repository, maybe your own software repository from where you need to check those exes. I mean, there are multiple options depending on the scenarios, but you need to define all those workflows, all those steps, and then map those to the your SOAR platform or the orchestrator, which can be automated. So, what are the challenges that the SOAR is going to resolve? Obviously, you have lots of alerts coming in the SIM solution. Your analyst, the L1 guy who is sitting in front of your screens, is not going to be able to analyze each and everything. There, you need a SOAR platform where you can define, for example, certain set of alerts whenever they come. These are the different playbooks that we follow, and we can certainly automate those things. What are the desperate tools? Desperate tools is like if you have an investigation, your SOC analyst has to contact the threat intelligence team, it has to contact certain other teams, it has to look into the software repository, it has to look into the system repository to identify, just to create the contextual information about the alert, about the systems involved. These all things are the things that can be automated using a SOAR platform, and this is where the SOAR platform can become very handy. Based on these desperate tools, obviously when the L1 has to contact, L1 has to look into different repositories, this is going to take time, and the response to close an alert or respond or to respond on an event is going to be very slow. That is where your SOAR can come very handy. It can do all those manual tasks automatically, and maybe you can configure it to send you the report, or create a report and attach with the alert, so that the L1 or the L2 guy can just quickly go through that report and define, um, make the decision. Certainly, it also covers your lack of skills, the time that we have already discussed, and all those repetitive tasks that the L1 has to do. The SOAR can help you there. The contextual information that is required, that we have already discussed. These are the things where, and the challenges that the SOAR platform can help you with. What are the different use cases where we can use this SOAR platform? These are just as an example for you, but you can certainly discuss within your own security teams, within your own organization, that how mature is your organization, how mature are your playbooks, how effectively you can map those playbooks within the orchestrator, and how effectively can you automate those things. So the first one could be the phishing email. So if the phishing email arrives, what happens? The SOAR platform is going to contact all the users, or is it going to make a list of all the users who have received it? Is it going to search for those different phishing emails, or if this SOAR itself is going to send that phishing email to a sandbox if there is any attachment? So these are the different steps that you can automate within your SOAR platform. Malicious file, if some malicious file was downloaded, what happens to that? Similarly, critical service has been stopped or the server is down. Who who is the person responsible that the SOAR can maybe shoot an email to? Maybe SOAR can generate a ticket in your service ticket platform, or SOAR can contact, or SOAR can be configured to send a message or a phone call to your relevant resources. So these are different use cases. I mean, when we talk about the use cases, we all know that when you are indulged in the security operations, there could be numerous use cases where you have pretty set of rules or actions that you know that if something happens xyz 1 2 3 4, these are the steps that we have to do, that we have to take. So these are the things where you can imagine that these repetitive tasks can be automated and the human involvement can be taken out, so that the SOAR platform can do those things and the humans, they can work on something better. So I hope this SOAR presentation helps you very much in your understanding of what exactly the SOAR can offer. I did not deliberately discuss anything about the technical details about of the SOAR. Plus, I did not discuss any of the platforms that are out available. There are different companies that are offering those SOAR platforms, but maybe we can discuss those in some other video. But today I just wanted to have a clarity on what exactly is SOAR at the root level, so that one completely understand the concept of it. I hope this was helpful for you guys. If you like it, don't forget to subscribe and comment so that I can come up with the other good videos. This video was also and developed on the request of one of the comments. So thank you so much for your time, and do not forget to subscribe. Take care. Bye bye.